Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee to order. Please join me in a salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call of the members of the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee. Councilor Guarino-Sawaya.
Here.
Here. Councilor Jaramillo is absent. Councilor Kelly?
Here.
Here. And Councilor Silvestri is absent. And Chairman Argenzio.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. First item on tonight's agenda is Council Order 24-061, an ordinance providing interpretation and translation services for public meetings and public documents.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At the public hearing, Ms. Inzarello had spoken against this ordinance. Maybe she can come up. And it sounds like the city is doing a lot for interpretation services. And her opinion was that this ordinance went a little bit too far, a little too extreme, and the city didn't have the manpower or the finances to do it at this point. But there is quite a bit of work being done already for translation. And Ms. Inzarello, do you want to?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chairman, to the rest of the members of the subcommittee, just to briefly refresh your memory before you decide, we're just asking that you have faith in the pilot program that we're working on. It fulfills our duties to the Department of Housing and Urban Development while offering widespread language services once it's completed. If a year from now you're not satisfied, you think we can do better, there's always going to be room for improvement, and we can work with our counselors and our other staff to find those areas of improvement. And while we do appreciate the thought and intent behind Councilor Jaramillo's motion, we ask that you give us a chance to first prove we can do what we're trying to do with what we have, and then maybe there will be funding, more personnel in the future, and we can go back and work on those recommendations.
Thank you. Do any members wish to speak? Councilor Guarino-Sawaya.
Thank you. I agree, Claire, and I think the city is doing enough for interpretation services, and we cannot take more money out of the budget right now to have extra when we don't need it. Thank you.
Councilor Kelly.
Thank you. Yes, and I also just want to, I agree with Councilor Guarino-Sawaya, and I also wanted to just point out Steve Morabito's letter, the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I thought it was a very thoughtful letter, and I agree with all of his points. So I believe that this is just a little premature right now. So thank you.
Councilor Jaramillo has just arrived. We're talking about the translation services, your motion. We were ready to make a motion to place it on file. Do you have any comment?
Yeah, so I watched the meeting from last week. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the leeway. And it's unfortunate that the administration I've worked with for a few months on this now is backtracking a little bit. And it's quite honestly disappointing that some of the residents in this city who do not speak English will not have access to a more forward-thinking translation services. We've been working for months on this. This was in alignment with the HUD regulations, and we were going to go above and beyond, which we should, because we're a city that should lead. I'm okay with the placing on file for now, I guess, and I look forward to a more honest conversation with the administration moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to place on file?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Thank you.
So when you do the committee report on the regular... Next item is Council Order 24-176, an ordinance further amending regulations relative to short-term rentals.
Thank you. Any councilors wishing to speak? We had a public hearing, and it seemed like everyone was in agreement with these new changes. Mr. Argenzio is here tonight if you have any further questions. If not, we can move to look on this affirmatively. motion to pass this and look on it in the affirmative.
Second.
All in favor, all opposed? Aye. So ordered.
Next up is Council Order 24-220, communication from the DEI Director relative to an ordinance establishing rules and regulations for the display of flags and the use of City Hall.
Good evening, councilors. Steve Morabito, 281 Broadway, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The ordinance before you stems from the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Shurtleff v. Boston case. This ordinance sets a policy at which flags can be displayed as an expression of city's official sentiments, ensuring that flagpoles are not intended to serve as public forum for free expression by individuals or groups. Instead, the flags flown represent the official sentiments of the City of Revere, which should be ordered by this honorable body. The lack of consistent policy opens the door to all flag raisings. The importance of codifying these regulations is important for legal compliance and to safeguard the City of Revere for any potential lawsuit. Having this policy adopted is the strongest defense of a potential lawsuit because it is being ordered by this legislative body of our city and the mayor. This is not to deter the city from having flag raisings, but instead to safeguard us by having a policy that lines up with the U.S. Supreme Court's decisions in the case Shurtleff v. Boston. Flag raising policies are being passed not just here, trying to be passed in Revere, but in neighboring cities from Lynn, Medford, across the Commonwealth to Framingham, Lowell, but not only municipalities in the state of Massachusetts passing flag raising policies based on the Supreme Court's decision, but municipalities throughout the country. So this is something you guys need to think hard and long about. I know you guys did your due diligence and did your research. At the end of the day, this is about protecting our city for potential lawsuits. I know you guys had some questions from the solicitor. I know Claire is here. If you have any questions, any legal questions.
Council President Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my one holdup, is that we don't have an opinion from our solicitor or the solicitor's office. I think this goes along with freedom of speech, and before I put my name on something, I'd like to be sure that we're not violating that.
So first, I'm hoping he's en route because he's watching right now, so I think he's coming from his office. He was a little unclear on what the actual opinion desired was, so I think he's going to come with a blank slate for you guys to ask specific questions, if you don't mind waiting a minute or two.
Okay, Mr. Marabito, there's a small problem we have to cure up with the short-term rentals. I think we'll do that
Sure.
now as we wait for
Thank you for
Mr.
that.
Capizzi.
Chairman, there was an amendment proposed by, Claire had sent this on August 27th, and that was to add a new section, Section 8.09.030 of the revised ordinance of the City of Revere is further amended by inserting the following new subsection H, accessory dwelling units as defined in Chapter 17.25 of the zoning bylaws of the City of Revere are prohibited from being used as a short-term rental.
Sorry, we forgot to flag that, but that amendment was sent in following the passage of the housing bond bill, the really big one that you've probably seen around in the news. And we, the short-term rental office, through Vincent and Nick, thought it would be a precaution to make sure that those types of dwellings were excluded from short-term rental use, which the Commonwealth allows us to do at a local level.
On the amendment, all in favor, all opposed? Aye. On the short-term rental motion as amended.
Aye.
Okay? Thank you.
Sorry for the delay. I didn't think you'd get through it so fast. It's only 5:10. I thought it was the third item on the agenda.
We're moving quick. Do any counselors have questions for Mr. Capizzi?
Yeah.
Council President Cogliano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Mr. Capizzi. The question is just, we wanted to make sure that we had an opinion from you on this to make sure that we're protected as well. I don't think most of us want to put our name on something unless we're sure that it's legal to pass this. So.
Yes, it's legal to pass it.
Thank you.
Councilor Kelly.
Good evening, Attorney Capizzi. Thank you for being here. I know that I emailed you and you answered some of my questions, but my big concerns are still, I know that you said Boston and some neighboring towns have done it this way. I personally would feel more comfortable if we just satisfied our obligations pursuant to the lawsuit, the Shurtleff case, just by way of a proclamation, instead of all this other language that's included in this ordinance. My concerns are, for one, duration. There's nothing mentioned in the ordinance regarding time or duration. So how would that be dealt with?
Well, I'll first say there's no time and duration in probably 99.9% of all our ordinances. If you're going to establish a policy for flag raising, a proclamation is not the best way to do it. Generally, proclamations are a formal announcement to recognize a special event or occasion or a personal achievement. Policy per se can be law, and that's what this is. It would be a law. It would erase all ambiguity as to what we intend to do with a flag-raising policy. There would be no doubt as to what this council preferred, what the mayor prefers, what the city policy actually is. Proclamations, I don't know if those are recorded, if anyone can look it up. It's just too vague for me, personally, in my opinion, which is why I think Boston and other neighboring towns established a more solid way to let the world know that that flagpole outside either is available for public speech or is not available for public speech.
Follow up on that if I could. So, and that's one of the issues I have is vagueness. So in other words, when I'm speaking about duration, I'm referring to the length of time, say, the flag would be raised for. So how do we?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
How do
I'm
we
sorry.
address that?
Yeah. The way this has been working, it would be determined by the proclamation established. So if the mayor said, we're going to hang, I don't know, a flag for 30 days, that would be for 30 days. My understanding is the flagpole is not being replaced. The city flag is not being replaced. It's occasionally being used to now express, if this passes, the city's speech. So the court gives a good example of if the Red Sox win the World Series and the council may decide they want to hang up the Red Sox flag for a week to recognize this championship, they can so do that. It wouldn't just be hanging the Red Sox banner indefinitely, not knowing when to take it down. The events planner, depending on what the thing is being offered, would also play a role in saying, we'd like the flag up, if you don't mind, could you put it up? And you guys could decide whether you allow it or not for a specific time. So at the time its determination is made, the way I see this playing out, is at the time when the duration will be set. I misunderstood your question. I thought you meant duration on the ordinance, not the content of the flag raising.
So in the scenario that I'm thinking of is that, say, if one flag is up for an entire month, and then another protected group or class or requests that their flag also be up, say, well, we want ours up for an entire month.
I don't think it's going to work that way. This is...
But there's nothing in here that says it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, actually, what it says in here is it's the city's determination as to what flags will be raised. So groups can't just come up here every month and go, I'd like my flag up for a month. Unless it's specifically allowed by the ordinance, which I think makes exception for some military flags, the POW flag, I think Juneteenth and Pride flag. Nobody has the right to display any flag any longer if we adopt this ordinance. It's up to the city to determine if they will allow it, and it has to be representative of the government speech, not the individual speech.
I think a good example to consider is the Pride flag and the Juneteenth flag both go up in June, if I'm correct in the DEI office. And my assumption would be, we have the pride flag up for the duration of June, but we know that Juneteenth on that day goes up for the one day and then comes down. So we work around what the duration needs to be depending on the logistics of that event.
But to your question, people can't just be flooding, they can now, quite frankly, under our current policy, anyone could request to put a flag up. But under this new policy, much like what Boston's going to adopt to eliminate challenges in case you want to deny a particular flag, which is what Boston did and was found to be in violation of the First Amendment, no one would have the right to hang any flag other than the ones that we want to put up, we being the city.
And when you say that, we being the city, so you mentioned the mayor. So with this, and I have to go back and read the language, but is it by his sole discretion? I believe that also the city council votes as well. So when would that be distinguished? In which case? Would it be the mayor? Would it be the city council? What would determine that?
So it would, checks and balances. So the mayor could present it before the city council, or a city council could present a flag raising before the city council, and then it would be approved by the mayor, vice versa. Checks and balances.
So the city council would always have a role?
The ordinance has written, it says, "A proclamation of the mayor or resolution of the city council. Other flags may be flown by the city in place of the City of Revere flag." And then it gives some subcontext to that. So that's a great question. I don't know procedurally, maybe it's a discussion to have with Ashley offline as to how that will look or how that will work. But there are 11 of you, maybe 11 of you want 11 different flags at different times. Maybe the mayor wants a bunch of flags. My experience thus far, there hasn't been a lot of kicking down the door to raise flags. It's been few and far between. So I'm not saying it's not a concern, but let's not create a problem that doesn't currently exist.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Mr. Capizzi, how are you? So I just had a question about, you mentioned here proclamations, and you were just saying in your speech that we don't want to do it by proclamation, is that right?
Correct. That's my preference.
The entire ordinance says proclamation at every point,
No,
1,
no,
2,
no, no.
3, 4.
Instead of an ordinance, a proclamation, not the council and the mayor can't make a proclamation to recognize a special event or a special occasion. Michelle Kelly's, and Councilor Kelly, excuse me, Councilor Kelly's concern was that would we rather not do a proclamation instead of adopting the ordinance to set the policy?
The codification in the ordinance gives the proclamation the bones that it doesn't have on its own.
Okay. Question. Subsection C, lowercase a, Roman numeral 5. During the month of June, the LGBTQ+ pride flag and the Juneteenth flag may be displayed upon the proclamation of the mayor or resolution of city council. Is this in line with what other cities and towns are doing in their flag ordinances?
I think so in some, you can speak to it.
If we're speaking honestly, it depends on if you're looking at red states or blue states, Los
In
Angeles.
Massachusetts?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, this is almost a direct copy of the city of Medford.
The city of Medford.
Yep.
Would this not be a speech statement here that we're embedding into an otherwise general ordinance?
Yes.
So
The
why
government
are we
has a-
making the distinction between this speech and that speech, is
We're
my
not.
question.
I think if I understand your question, when we think of free speech, we tend to think of an American citizen and the government infringing that free speech. What the courts have determined is that the government also has free speech. So if that becomes our flagpole and the Patriots win the Super Bowl and we want to put up a flag of the Patriots winning the Super Bowl, we can do that. That's the city of Revere acknowledging the Patriots won the Super Bowl. We then do not have to agree to then hang up a Jets flag if a Jets fan asks us to put us up, because that pole is not representative of citizens' free speech or personal free speech. It's representative of government speech.
Okay, so we make a specific carve out about both of these instances, which I personally agree with. But we are denying the Jets fan, for example,
Yes.
the opportunity to, if they, maybe 50% of the city is Jets fans. In fact, there are cities in New England where half the city is a Giants fan, half the city is a Patriots fans.
Well, you guys could decide to permit it. This ordinance hasn't passed yet. And I think it's in the committee, and you may make other changes to it. I don't know. I know Zambudo submitted an amendment
I guess my
already.
question still stands. Why are we making particular carve-outs of speech in this ordinance if this is to standardize and to avoid?
That's your call. If you want to take it out, you
No,
can
it's
take it out.
not my call. I didn't write this. The city council
No,
didn't
no,
write
no,
this.
but you have to adopt it. The fact that one of us wrote it doesn't mean it's the law.
I know, but
It's
you wrote this on
determination that-
behalf of the mayor, so my question
We
is,
took
why
it
is the
from other
mayor?
cities and towns, and because we have historically hung the pride flag. And the
Yeah.
Juneteenth flag is a new holiday, which is traditionally now being recognized by a lot of communities.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why that's in there. And the POWMA flag and the military flags and the half-mast and all that is stuff that's been a custom and practice for many municipalities or any governments that have flagpoles.
Okay. I mean, I don't understand why we're deviating from precedent and then making carve-outs for that precedent when things have seemed to be working fine.
Well,
But
I don't know that we-
I appreciate.
I don't know that we're
your
deviating
answers.
from precedent. I think we're actually following precedent. And rather than have to have a proclamation every June to put up a pride flag, it can be done automatically by the mayor or by the city because the ordinance allows for that as being government speech, that the city of Revere is recognizing Pride Day or Pride Month or whatever it's called.
But what you're asking the city council to do is for every little flag, whatever the flag may be, maybe it's, let's say, September Suicide Prevention Flag Month, suicide prevention flag raising. Now we have to go through the council, and you're going to have people who want that now have to either wait for the mayor to act or the city council to act, and you're making the council make a political decision about a free speech move.
No. Well, what's the alternative?
The alternative is if you leave it how you have it.
That's right, then don't pass the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Capizzi.
I also want to flag that if you do keep it the way that we have it right now, with the exception of very, very obvious and overt hate speech, which is tough to prove nowadays with the craziness that's going on, any flag that comes before the city, we have to say yes to. We cannot deny anybody right now. And given certain hot topic issues, especially with foreign conflicts and things like that, we would be stuck in a very, very tough spot.
Yep, that's your call. This is the city council's call to make. You represent the citizens of the city of Revere. Boston chose to change the policy because they were sued, and they did lose because they denied a Christian flag going up when they had previously allowed any number of different types of flags to wave on the Boston City Hall Plaza. If you don't pass this ordinance, which is your choice, you take that control away from the city. You say this flagpole is open to the public. Anybody who wants can request and be allowed to hang up whatever flag they want. Whether it offends you or not, doesn't matter. It's free speech. The Christian flag goes up, the Palestinian flag goes up, whatever flag wants to go up must go, barring, like Claire said, hates a swastika we'd say no to. But for the most part, you'd be opening it to the public forum. You can leave it as it is. It's your choice. I'm not telling you how to proceed. I'm just telling you what the ordinance would require if passed.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly.
So if I'm understanding correctly then, the amendment proposed by Councilor Zambudo, do you have that? I'm just trying to go
Yes.
through our choices here. So our choices are do nothing and risk being sued the way Boston was sued by Hal Shurtleff,
Only
correct?
if we deny somebody.
Okay. And would the Church of Satan say, the Temple of Satan be hate speech, or would that be, that's a religion, correct?
There you go, there's the gray area. So unless, I don't know, I'm not going to make the decision on this, but unless there's a problem with the Church of Satan, that flag would go up.
Right, okay. So then another option would be, as identified in the amendment proposed by Councilor Zambudo, is to allow flags of the various branches of the military, the United States flag, the Blue Star Service flag, official Mia Pau Mia flag, United States flag, Commonwealth of Massachusetts flag, City of Revere flag, and include Section D, which is the proclamation stating that flagpoles are not intended to serve as a forum for the expression of the public.
But that's already in the ordinance. Tony maybe missed that. He's just restating that, which is already in the
Right,
draft in front of
but
you.
if we adopted this, we would be in compliance with the Shurtleff case, and
Yes.
we would, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Counselor. And Paul, thank you for coming up. And I just want to clarify, so if we pass the ordinance and, I don't know, 5 years from now, different city councilors come up here and their mindset's on a different thing, they'll be able to change that ordinance, right, to fit whatever they need
Oh, yeah.
to say?
It's not a constitutional amendment, it's a city ordinance. You always have the option to amend or repeal your ordinances.
Okay. I just think we're running down a slippery slope. Today it's making sense. The next time the ordinance change, it may not make sense. And a flag that we respect and want to go up may not be the flag that gets raised.
I mean, that's the beauty of democracy. It's flexible, right? You get to change laws, you get different elected officials. If at some time in the future, this body, maybe you won't be on it, I won't be here, thankfully, decides that something needs to change, under democracy, we can do that. It's not a king's edict.
Right.
It's simply an ordinance to recognize and regulate the use of that flagpole by saying that's the city's flagpole. It's the city's form of speech.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Mr. Capizzi, I heard something that maybe I misheard. When you were saying, all the flags that could be raised, and you mentioned the Christian flag or the Palestinian flag, is there a concern with raising either of those flags with the city right now?
You're asking me if I speak on behalf of the entire city, whether there's a concern of a particular flag?
I'm asking you
Gee,
as a
I don't know,
person who wrote the
Counselor.
ordinance.
I wrote the ordinance to outline the difference between free speech and government speech. That's
You
all I
wrote
wrote
the
it for.
That's not, so you wrote the ordinance and then mentioned concern with those two flags. I'm
I was
asking
just
you if
using it
there's
as
a
an
concern.
example that if the ordinance isn't passed, anyone can ask us to hang any flag they want.
Clearly present in mind. My question is that a concern with someone in the city right now? Does the mayor have a concern with raising the Christian or the Palestinian flag right now?
I'll let Claire answer that since she helped draft it.
And because I also alluded to the same thing. I can't speak for what concerns people have, but knowing how divisive certain subjects are, like abortion, like Israel-Palestine, I would imagine that a lot of feelings would be invoked on either side of the political aisle if we came to something like those flags that are divisive, no matter what side of the aisle you stand on.
Claire, I'm sorry. I really respect your work and everything that the solicitor's office does, but it does sound like you both wrote this, or someone wrote this ordinance with a political intent in mind, and therefore, it sounds like we are silencing free speech. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're not silencing free speech. A person can stand in front of City Hall all day long with the flag they want to hold on the sidewalk. All we're saying is, can the City Hall property be used as a mechanism to exert that free speech when there are controversial matters? It most certainly can. It is being used right now. And much to what Council Silvestri said, that can always be changed. If in the future you love Palestine or you love abortion or whatever it is you want to get out there to be spoken about, the city can decide that's what they want to do. We're just saying, as a mechanism by which speech can be displayed, that's what this ordinance is addressing. It's not addressing content in any way, shape, or form, except to say we are going to allow the pride flag and the Juneteenth flag and military flags. Other than that, the city will decide what speech it wants to display on that flagpole by either council resolution or mayoral proclamation. Because it's our flag, we have a right to speech as well, we being the city, not just us in this room.
Councilor Green-Oswaya.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you, Mr. Capizzi, for all the work that you did on this. And I do agree, we will be saving the city a lawsuit because there are a lot of controversial issues that would come up that flags may want to be displayed, and we would want to be known as the city that displayed certain flags. So I agree with this, and I'm happy you and Claire did all the work with this.
That's the political part of it, and I understand Councilor Jaramillo's concerns, because there may be a flag you love and want up there, there may be a flag you hope never gets waved. But that's why it was open to the public. And when Boston decided it was going to reject the Christian flag, and Boston's defense was they thought it would have been a violation of the Establishment Clause of the Constitution recognizing a particular religion. The appeals court agreed with that, but the Supreme Court did not. The Supreme Court said, no, you're singling out a religion not to speak when you've allowed many others to speak. That is that's a violation of the First Amendment.
Right, and what Counselor Kelly had said really resonated with me, because do we really want to be known as atheists, or do we want to be known as devil lovers? And if it goes up as
That's your
on the
personal
city
preference, Adam.
poll, it's representing the city. We can't do that.
Well, that's the confusion. Does it represent the city, or is it a forum for public speech? If it becomes our poll, it represents what the city wants in terms of speech. If it's open to the public, then anyone has the right to hoist the flag.
Right, but what you said was you can hold the flag outside City Hall and we can't stop you. But
Correct.
if you're putting it on city property, it's on city property.
Correct. That's one of the big distinctions. And the city property can be used as a public forum for speech or not. And right now, we've had a policy where we've allowed it, as did Boston and other towns and cities in the area for years. So now that the Supreme Court came down with this decision, which could subject the municipality to a lawsuit from a disgruntled or a disapproved flag group or person, this was a way to prevent that from happening by just giving it into the hands and control of the city itself.
Council President Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know how many more ways Mr. Capizzi could explain this. I will be supporting this. I think it's good that it's coming here. Initially, I didn't like that it was coming to the council, but I do like it to come here because we do represent the community, and people will be able to reach out to us and tell us how they feel. And, you know, I would like to be here if we could stop the evilest of flags, which is the New York Giants. I don't want that hanging at all. So, thank you.
Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the leeway. And I think we're possibly setting a precedent that we may, and I use the example I did of future, someone changing it. Today, it's the flags that we support, but down the line, if they change it to flags that we don't, I think that's where we're getting into the fact of setting a precedence, and why bring it to us is the question. If the mayor and it's hate speech, listen, if the Nazis come and want to raise a flag, I don't think anyone's going to allow the Nazis to raise the flag. But besides hate in that type of speech, I don't think we should be setting a precedent or blocking any type of flags. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
say that you're the legislative body, so you guys ultimately decide that. This is a policy to be made by this body.
And just, if you choose to do all flags, no flags, Councilor Zambuto's amendment or not, whichever you choose, if you want to let every single person raise every single flag, it should be codified in an ordinance so we can protect our butts and say, see, this is our policy. We're not making a willy-nilly decision. So whatever you do decide, it should be codified in some way.
Name and address for the record.
Ed Terrell, 70 Sewell Street, Revere, Mass. This ordinance makes me feel very, very uncomfortable. I see what they're doing in the UK. People are being arrested for Facebook posts. And I really, really am very concerned that we're moving in that direction. I mean, speech is really hard. And it should make us think, and it should challenge us, and it should make us think differently. And we're moving closer and closer to censorship on a government level, and it is really quite frightening. And I think we need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Zambuto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anthony Zambuto, 87 High Street. I believe this is my motion. I apologize for just getting here, but stuck in traffic. I didn't hear all that went on. I heard somebody say something about political. My motion has nothing to do with politics at all. I'm asking for the American flag, the state flag, and all military flags, nothing else. Now, if that's political, I don't know where it comes from, because it isn't. It just eliminates what somebody said about the Nazi flag or stuff like that. I think it's simple, and that's why I put it in. That's what I'm looking for. the American flag, the state flag, and any military flag of any kind. And that's it. So that's my motion, and that's why I put it in, and it had nothing to do with any politics, or I would have been putting up, whose flag.
So to be clear, Councilor Zambudo, your amendment would mean that those are the only flags
Yes.
flown, and we would not allow any flags up
Yes.
the city pole? Okay.
Because, and my point is that there was somebody trying, I shouldn't say somebody tried, there was a rumor that somebody didn't want to let a Christian flag be put up. And that's when I took a look at this and I said, well, I would like the Christian flag put up, but there might be some flags I don't like put up. And I think the fairest way is to do it, limit it to what we're supposed to be doing. I left out the city flag, I apologize, but I think everybody knew that anyway. So it's the American flag, the state flag, the city flag, and any military flag. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kelly.
Thank you for the leeway. I think that speaks to Councilor Jaramillo's point when he said the decision-making process then regarding each particular flag, that burden will be on the city council, and thereby it could be seen as the city council making a political statement. And doing something that Councilor Zambudo is proposing would eliminate that. And again, it's not that if you want to raise a flag in front of City Hall, if you want to have a protest, if you want to have a demonstration or a celebration or anything like that, that's fine. It would just be limiting that the only flags that would be allowed on the city's flagpoles would be the United States flag, Commonwealth, City of Revere, and the various military flags. That would keep us out of that area where we may be seen as making political statements on each particular request that comes before us. So I am in support of that. Thank you.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly. That's great. I wasn't speaking to your amendment, Councilor Zambudo. No, that's okay. I was speaking to the ordinance presented by the mayor's office, not your amendment. So just to clarify that, I think.
Just to be clear, the solicitor's
I'm
office is
sorry.
separate from the mayor's office.
Well, it does say here, communication from the Director of Equity and Inclusion, which, as my understanding of the organizational structure of this city, does work under the purview of the mayor's office. So I apologize if I misspoke, but I want to clarify. I'm sorry. I'm going to reclaim my time at this point, Claire. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, that wasn't towards you, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
So if I can, I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Capizzi.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman.
Say we were to adopt Councilor Zambudo's amendment. I personally enjoy the celebrations out in front of City Hall. Would we be in the same predicament? I know during the celebrations, the city provides chairs, tents, a sound system. Would we be able to continue that and still not get into trouble if we didn't want to provide those things to other groups?
To the best of my understanding, yes. You could continue it.
We could continue.
Yes.
And
If the city decided it wanted to celebrate, pick a holiday or a day, and wanted to have chairs put up and speak at it, absolutely.
Okay. And if another group came along that maybe we didn't share their ideology, they could take it upon themselves to stand on the sidewalk in front of City Hall and
Sure.
and do their thing.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't think of it so much as abridging free speech as I do as thinking expanding the city's free speech to decide what it wants to display as a matter of public speech.
Okay. Thank you. Any councilors have any further questions?
Chairman has requested that Councilor Zambudo's amendment be taken up at this time. It reads as follows. Strike section 1.10100C and insert in its entirety and insert in place thereof new section 1.10.100C. C, at the discretion of the mayor, the following flags relative to the United States Armed Forces and military may be flown by the city in place of the City of Revere flag. 1, flags of the various branches of military services of the United States of America. 2, the Blue Star Service Flag. 3, the official MIA POW flag. In Section 2, insert a new Section 1.10.100D as follows. The city's flagpoles are not intended to serve as a forum for free expression of the public. On the amendments presented by Councilor Zambudo, Councilor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Jaramillo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
No.
No. And Chairman Argenzio?
Yes.
Yes, the amendment has been approved. Now,
Roll call, excuse me.
this is not going to a public hearing, so you would say.
Roll call on taking the motion as amended to public hearing.
Councilor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Jaramillo?
No.
No. Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
No.
No. And Chairman Argenzio?
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance as amended will be forwarded to the full city council this evening with a recommendation to be ordered to a public hearing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
point of personal privilege, please.
Sure.
I just want to make it clear, the reason I said no to that vote was because exactly what my explanation was. We brought this motion to the floor in hopes of doing one thing, and then someone got it and changed it to fit theirs, and now down the road, someone else can change it to fit theirs, and we just kind of made a mess of things. That's how I see it, but that's really how I'll leave it, and that's it.
Thank you, Counselor.
And last item on tonight's agenda, Council Order 24-221, communication from the Veterans Services relative to an ordinance establishing regulations for veterans memorial poles.
Good evening, Clarence Rillo, 281 Broadway. Before I hand it off to Julia and Donna from our Veterans Service Office, I wanted to flag a small correction. You all received a memo outlining some of the amendments for this memorial poles ordinance, and I'll read this very slowly because I get confused also. The very last bullet point on your memo outlines that we should insert new subsection C. I forgot that I had a second page on mine, so it actually is a new subsection C, but there's still a D and an E. So we would just re-letter. Ashley knows where the re-lettering goes. I'm not sneaking anything in, I'm just flagging that subsection C is actually inserting before an already existing D and E that was left off of the page. So I'm going to hand it off to Donna and Julia for any questions you guys have.
Councilors, any questions? Comments?
Hi, I'm Julia, VSO. So I trust that you've all read it. And I'm really here just to answer any questions. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, how does this deviate from what we currently do? Or does it deviate?
Very much, yes. So the two main deviations are with Bronze Star, we're adding with Valor. So you have to have a Bronze Star with Valor, not just a Bronze Star. The other deviation is the gold stars that go on the poles. Moving forward, we would like to only put that on the poles of Gold Star family members, service members who died in action. So those are
Okay, explain the bronze part of it to me again, the bronze.
Okay, so there's a huge distinction between a Bronze Star and a Bronze Star with Valor. And at the public hearing, I can also email out service members who have received both, dictating the difference between the two so that you can see the difference between the two. Trying to think of a good example. So Mark would probably have come up with an excellent example.
So a Bronze Star with Valor is for heroics in combat. Bronze Star you could get for being like an E6 and supporting your unit through a deployment.
Right.
So you'd be given a Bronze Star for making that mark.
Right.
With the Valor is expert in
So
So you would still get a memorial pole, you just wouldn't get the
No, you would not.
You would not get a,
If you only have a Bronze Star and you don't have the CIB, you wouldn't qualify. So a radio man who picks up the radio during war, and then a man who he radios to goes in combat and gets fired at, they would both get Bronze Stars. The one who took fire gets the Bronze Star with valor. The one who picked up the radio and did not to say just, but did his job undercover in no danger would get a Bronze Star. Does that help a little bit?
it does. So in other words, just being a veteran does not qualify you for a
Absolutely
poll.
not.
You know, what about killed in action?
You would qualify.
Okay. I apologize, I didn't go through it as
okay.
best as I should have. Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Would 20 years of service still qualify you?
20 years of service active?
Yes.
We didn't, no.
Okay.
Is that okay, Counselor, or would you want to make an amendment too?
Yes. Okay. Good?
Ms. Inzarelli, would you want to add something?
I do want to flag your question about deviation from the standard. There is no standard. This is an entirely new chapter, putting in these rules and regulations that we don't have on file right now.
Okay, thank you.
There are some amendments that Claire had.
Donna Dreesen, 249 I Broadway, Veteran Services. I just wanted to bring to your attention something that we encounter in the office. And I wanted to show you an example of two photos. This is Charles McMacken, who was killed in action. This is Stephen Dreesen, Vietnam vet. So the way it is now, he could get a pole. What we're trying to say is he really shouldn't get a pole. He shouldn't get a memorial. But this guy, of course, has the distinction of getting a pole with a star. There are 350 decorated poles right now in the city. 221 are actual Gold Star. So we're trying to preserve the dignity of these signs and the poles, because when you go around the city, it looks like cookie cutters. They all start to look the same, and they really shouldn't. So I just wanted to give you that visual.
Thank you.
Mr. Thank you.
Counselor Silvestri.
And I agree, and I kind of love the idea of cleaning it up and making it so it's presentable, but I thought the only change that would have been different prior was the Gold Star, and I was in favor of that. What I dispute a little bit is I thought we did bring it in front of the council, and I thought we said that it would be combat veterans or 20 years of service would get you one, and then the veteran service officer after me came up and presented the change for the Gold Star. So I just, the idea of not having anything on the books and then changing it for the 20-year veteran is an issue that I have, but I see where they're going with this, because I believe the polls were out of control. At one point, people that served in the military for 2 years, they have a poll out there somewhere. So I see where this is going, but I do think a 20-year distinction is something that is a mark where you can retire from the service. And once passed, I do think you deserve that honor of getting a poll, but that's just me. I'm the other people running the office.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mark.
thank you. Any further comments? A vote to move this to a public hearing?
There were some amendments presented by Claire Inzarello. Did you want to take up those amendments prior to ordering the original language to a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Section 1, establishing Chapter 12.22, Veterans Memorial Poles, is hereby amended by inserting new subsection D to Section 12.22.20. D, Gold Star family shall mean spouses, parents, children, siblings, grandparents, and grandchildren of service members who died while on active duty with the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Combining the language of subsection C of section 12.22.30 with the language of subsection B and subsequently relettering subsection D into subsection C. And then subsection B is hereby deleted in its entirety from section 12.22.40 and combining the language of subsection A with the first sentence of the section, thus removing the need for the label of subsection A, and deleting subsection C in its entirety from section 12.22.50 and inserting in place thereof the new subsection C. Upon an affirmative vote by the City Council and subsequent signature by the mayor, the Veteran Affairs Office shall consult with relevant city staff to determine the memorial pole location and the date of the ceremony. And lastly, inserting a new subsection C to section 12.22.60, the insignia of a gold star shall be reserved for memorial poles which honor service members of Gold Star families as defined herein. On those amendments?
On those amendments, all in favor? Aye. Roll call on the motion as amended to go to a public hearing.
Councilor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Jaramillo? Yes. Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Silvestri?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Argenzio?
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance received a favorable recommendation to be ordered to a public hearing as amended. No further
Thank you.
business.
No further business. Meeting adjourned.